Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you everyone for tuning in to another episode of Ascensions podcast. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in the Holy Quran, and whoever saves one life, it is as if he had saved mankind entirely. Service to others is a crucial part of our faith and many professions, whether it is tending to the sick, guiding communities, or navigating times of hardship. The believer is constantly called to act in the way of purpose, resilience, and sincerity. Joining me in tonight's discussion is Dr. Haidar Al-Saadi, whose journey from early community involvement during a challenging era for Muslims in America to becoming a physician and medical director reflects this balance between service to people and commitment to faith. Dr. Al-Saadi, it's an honor to have you. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
So obviously, Doctor, before you got started in the medical field, you were also a prominent member of the YMA. For those that are unaware, it was the youth group at the Islamic Center of America. And I want to highlight on that time there. So you served with this committee in the early 2000s. And obviously, it was one of the largest committees, youth committees in the United States. But you guys served at a time period with unique challenges, especially, with the post 9/11 environment. So I want to kind of tackle that experience there. And what was that experience like, growing in a community of large Muslims and, serving even in the board, the youth group board at your local mosque? How did that moment shape you? How did that experience affect you given the time you were serving it post 9/11?
Sure. So, having lived in New York, we lived like we were part and parcel of the Imam Al-Khou'i Center. So we were like religion was, part of our life on a daily basis. And went to a private school there, Islamic school there. I wanted to move to Michigan because I knew the large Muslim community. So I wanted to go to undergrad here in Michigan. And as soon as we moved here, I wanted to, again, continue that religious involvement. Got to know Imam Qazwini, and we knew that the youth group was kind of coming up. So I wanted to be part of that. And we felt like there was a big movement happening in Dearborn, that we were bringing youth together. We were playing basketball and we were having lectures, and the crowd was, getting bigger and bigger. And we were having a large impact on the community, which was very refreshing. 9/11 happens, and things start to get a little shaky. We don't know what to do. We're emotional. We're worried. But under the leadership of Imam Qazwini and the senior advisors like Hajj Najah Bazi and Hajj Dan Maqlid, and we kind of came together and let's pull back and strategize and try to do what's best for the community. Let's try to do what's best for Islam. And that was a great opportunity for us to kind of start spreading the word of Islam. And we started going to churches and doing things and kind of spreading the word of Islam and turning a good light out of something that was so devastating to the community.
SubhanAllah. And we see that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala always tells us like to always propagate a good message. So in Islam, at the end of the day, is religion of peace. And
Exactly.
it's amazing how you guys at such a young age were able to, because obviously of good leadership and good mentorship, you guys were able to stay steadfast and continue your message of peace and involvement at the same time. Obviously, being part of that experience obviously shaped your identity. So, giving advice to younger Muslims that are trying to develop their identity in a world that many may feel is secluding them or is targeting them, what advice would you give to these young Muslims?
If you were to, pressure me at one point and say, okay, right now, what would you say to Muslims? Keep your identity. Do not be shaken by anything that comes across you. We know what we have in our religion of Islam. There's nothing to be ashamed of. Hold steadfast, educate yourself so that you're able to educate others. If you are eloquent and have good stability in your faith, good stability in your knowledge of your faith, you're able to spread the word of Islam to other people. You don't have to be shaken by any kind of devastating things. Now, obviously, I'm saying this after having gone through everything. There's some growing pains that we went through. So now looking back at that, we were able to initially move from a point of fear to a point of confidence and be able to um, be proud of our religion and not have to worry about it. And alhamdulillah, we know like these days we've been able to, Islam has, been in the limelight for a long time, and most people are reasonable and understanding and welcoming. So, we don't need to worry about the minority who are extremists who quote unquote hate us. And we just kind of continue to showcase what we have, and we know what we have is a good thing.
That's amazing. Once, if you know you have the truth, there's no need to fight
Exactly.
for it.
Exactly.
And as you grew up and you knew that you want to go in the field of medicine, you're an emergency medicine doctor. But early on, I want to ask, what inspired you to go into medicine? And this is also a personal question because I want to do it. It's medicine as well, so maybe we could get some insights.
Of course. Yeah, I get that question a lot. So, growing up, I always excelled in math and science. And actually, it does go back a little bit to New York. And the high school that I went to requires you to do a major, quote unquote, in the last 2 years of high school. It was in Brooklyn. And my major was biomed. So, I was immersed, and we did anatomy and physiology, we did dissections, we did organic chemistry, stuff that you don't normally do in high school. Um, that was a leap that I took at that time. And I was exposed to doctors a lot. My mom took me to the pediatrician a lot. Not that I was very sick, but I just was exposed to medicine a lot.
Like a shadow.
It turned into something like that. And, I kind of really liked it, and I pursued it. I wanted to be successful in this, in this world of day and age. We didn't, I didn't come from a family of doctors. I wanted to excel in something like that. And alhamdulillah, kind of it worked out. And now we're here.
That's amazing. And then obviously you went into osteopathic medicine, and osteopathic medicine has an emphasis on a holistic approach.
Exactly.
And we recognize that Islam also, many Islamic traditions and medicinal practice people aren't aware, also takes into account the full encompassing body, all of the elements from the spiritual side to the physical side to the mental side. So I want to kind of ask, did that play a role when you going osteopathic medicine, or how did you at least view Islam through the lens of osteopathic medicine?
Yeah. So I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm gonna say, oh my God, I knew osteopathic medicine was the route I wanted to go. At the time, I had applied to medicine a couple of years, didn't get in, and kind of took a break, and then decided, you know what, I'm gonna apply to any possible school I could get into. I didn't know about osteopathic medicine at the time. I applied to the DO school. I had a couple of our shabab from the YMA that had applied to it. So I said, let me try that. I applied to the Caribbean, and alhamdulillah, I got accepted to osteopathic medicine. But now in retrospect, looking at that, you're like, wow, subhanallah, our religion is a very holistic kind of religion, and it's very befitting that osteopathic medicine is the route that we're going into, because you do need to look at the body as a whole. It's not just isolated parts. It's one big ecosystem in the body that kind of works together, and one part can affect another part. The spiritual versus the psychosomatic. This part hurts, but it could be because of something else. So we need to have that approach, in medicine and in other parts of our life, like our religion, alhamdulillah.
And I mean, even personally, when I had first heard about osteopathic medicine as well, I did see that overlap, and we obviously recognize that our religion puts emphasis on education, and I feel like any field of academia, but if you're able to view the lens of Islam through it, it truly becomes mesmerizing. Whether
For sure.
it's astronomy, medicine, and that's one of the things we like to propagate as a message on the podcast.
For sure.
Of the value of education and how bringing people from different fields. But obviously, when you go into medicine, you always have to specialize, and your specialty is emergency medicine, and you've obviously excelled in it, worked in it for many years. But what was your calling to that field? And just in the name, people might hear emergency medicine, right? It's something that deals with trauma. It's something that deals with high-paced, fast-paced.
Sure.
What prompted you to go in that field, essentially?
So I thought I was going to go into family practice or pediatrics when I went into medicine. I went into a couple of rotations, and I was not, it was not, I wasn't driving. It wasn't out my field. I did a rotation in emergency medicine, and I loved it. I loved that fast-paced thing. I felt like my personality, fit that. The emergency medicine or emergency room or department is the gateway to the hospital. Everybody who comes into the hospital starts in the emergency room.
Right.
You're catching people at their most vulnerable time. That's your opportunity to be able to act, do things, fix things, whether it's procedures or medications. And it could be stuff that's as minor as a sore throat to somebody who's in cardiac arrest. To be able to be there for people right at that moment, it's definitely satisfying, and it definitely makes me enjoy my job. And that's definitely part of, uh, having a longevity in your career, is to enjoy your job. And of course, you're not enjoying the sad parts or the bad parts, but that enjoying your job allows you to handle those parts with ease.
And you mentioned the last part about the sad realities of this field. And in reality, there's always a sad component, if you want to call it that, to any field of medicine,
Mhm.
because you're obviously a person's life is at stake.
Of course.
So I wanted to ask, how are you able to maintain this composure, if you want to call it, or discipline on such a high pressure field? So obviously, we also recognize you have a team around you when you're serving and helping others. How do you feel there's some sort of faith aspect to it that keeps you composed at times? You know, high pace, high volume times when you have people at their, like you mentioned, their weakest moments. What keeps you grounded at that time?
Sure. I mean, this has developed over the years. I don't think it just, you start out like that. Especially when you're a youth, you're very emotional, reactionary. As time goes by and as you learn more in your religion and you start to become more immersed in your faith, it's better to be calm, better to be level-headed. You don't think well when you're, in your emotional state. You got to step back and think. And, I make a point of it, when I'm in a difficult case, or we know that a code is coming. When everybody's in the room, I tell everybody, okay, guys, we're going to be calm. We're going to be collected. That's not going to be allowed, because there are some codes that, don't go well, because there's, yelling and screaming and,
Just the code aspects, or
oh, sorry. When somebody's like, when a cardiac arrest is coming through, and we know, they're not doing well, and they're gonna arrive in a minute, and the team is getting the room ready, and somebody's gonna do chest compressions, and somebody's gonna get the meds, and somebody's gonna get the IV. If it's loud and there's commotion, and let's say family members are witnessing this, they're not gonna have a lot of confidence in what's going on. We're supposed to be the the calm in the storm. We're supposed to be the ones who are level-headed, know what we're doing. If you don't exude that confidence that you know what you're doing, people are not going to have the faith that you're going to be able to help them.
yeah,
And so
you're
it's
an emotional pillar there.
correct,
Yeah.
correct. And definitely faith is definitely part of that. There's no question about that. Having the faith that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put you in a position to be able to help people, and in order to help people in the best possible way, you have to be grounded, you have to be level-headed, you have to not be over emotional. Obviously, we're human beings, but at the same time, we're in a position where people's lives are at stake, and we have to be, level-headed as possible.
And then before I tackle a specific, I wanted to ask you about a specific moment where, faith transformed your practice. But you mentioned the reoccurring theme of managing reason and emotion. And that kind of reminded me of a analogy
Sure.
that I like to often share. It was one of the famous Greek philosophers. He had used this analogy where basically when taking an action, it is as if you're sitting on a chariot and you have two horses. And basically one horse is defined as a horse of reason, and one horse is the horse of emotion. And you kind of like have to pull on the saddle or pull on the rope left and right, so you don't kind of balance it.
Sure.
Obviously, you know that translating that over
Sure.
to the field of medicine,
Sure.
it's probably that fight between
100%.
reason and emotion.
I love that, actually.
Yeah, families coming
I
in,
like that.
and you gotta be that pillar there to support. And going back to the aspect of faith, that topic of faith, was there a specific moment, even looking at undergrad or maybe even medical school rotations, was there one moment in particular, or maybe it could be an experience in general, that you felt faith came in there and truly, you know, uplifted you and served a special purpose, possibly even transformed your view of the field or view
Sure.
in the work.
So, you know, that question like triggers one specific, idea in my head that I've referred to multiple times. Obviously, myself being, growing up in the middle of religion, growing up, in Islam, being exposed to it, there was never a question of whether Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala existed or, why we're doing here. But the first class that we do in medicine is anatomy and physiology. So we have a bunch of cadavers and we're, looking at the different anatomy. There's a nerve. So when you're studying the nervous system, you look at all the different nerves that are available, that are possible in your body. There's many of them. There's one nerve called the recurrent laryngeal nerve. So it's a nerve that goes down and then curves back up to connect to the back of the throat where your voice box is. There's no reason for that to be the case, but it exists in every human being that you do in it. Why? SubhanAllah. It's just, to me, that stuff kind of just blew my mind. That, like, if there was any question, solidified my faith, because there's a hikmah in everything Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does. There's no physiological or anatomical reason for that to be the case, yet that is the case in every human being. And if you leave it to chance, if you leave it to evolution, then it would just connect directly. Why would it need to go further past it and then come back and do a U-turn? Why? That just boggled my mind and made things, put a different perspective on things. And you say, SubhanAllah, this is a machine that that nobody can duplicate.
And that's when you brought up the nervous system, because I'm actually a neuroscience major right now.
Awesome.
And so I really enjoy that stuff. And, part of the mesmerizing phenomena of science I realized was there was one moment in particular and that shaped my experience as well in this field was, when your brain is forming the different lobes, there's one particular brain structure, the prefrontal cortex, which is responsible for your higher reasoning, your problem solving, your thinking. And they say that when you, for example, perform prostration in salah, you're essentially, if you want to use the word, flooding your prefrontal cortex with more blood, oxygenated blood, and that, basically with more oxygen, it's able to function better.
Sure.
And then, so we see that overlap where we see salah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us salah is beneficial for us, but we actually see scientific reasons behind it.
It's amazing.
And it's like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has, as if planted or stamped his
For sure.
his initials basically on every part of our body. Like we see the miracles in there. And just because I thought of stamp, there was actually one doctor that had told me something amazing. If you look at your hands, if you kind of open your palms, you can look at your left hand, and it kind of looks like the Arabic number 81.
And 18.
Yeah, and 18.
Yeah, 99.
And then it turned out to 99. And when I ever saw that, I was like, that's amazing.
That is good.
That is amazing.
Yep.
Whether this has, whether that was by coincidence or obviously Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what about it's like subhanAllah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, for sure, as if he stamped.
For sure.
And
of course. And, that also makes me kind of think, okay, you're talking about, is this coincidence? But that is a sign of the fitra inside our body, that we're looking at random things and trying to find Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in it. Like, okay, these lines on my fingers, but wait, this turns into 99. Okay, is this about 99 names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Or you look at the moon and, the shadow of the moon looks like it says Ali. You're finding Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in many different aspects in the world. And so, alhamdulillah, subhanallah.
It's nice kind of tackling briefly one quick side note about one before we come back, because you mentioned signs. Even when I feel like when people talk about Quran, they often refer to, if you want to call it, to verses. But the Arabic word ayah means sign.
It's true.
So that's why I feel like there's a misinterpretation when people translate it to verse.
Sure.
And in reality, it's sign. That's why everything Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the whole Quran, from the first verse of Surah Al-Fatiha till the end of the Quran, all of these ayat, there are signs.
Sure.
So,
yeah.
And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, we've created for them signs, and they do not ponder. So
yeah,
It just requires us to look around,
100%.
and we'll see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Exactly.
Now, circling back in, I want to tackle back on your emergency medicine aspect. And then obviously this you mentioned, exposes you to people at their most vulnerable moment. And obviously at times you experience death in your work. And that's some of the hardest thing people aren't able to comprehend. And even or people in the field of medicine, that's hard for them to kind of deal with. So how were you able to maintain this balance? Obviously, when you experience a person's death, what's going through your mind, and how do you kind of stay grounded in that regard?
I don't think I'd be honest with you if I told you that there was a specific formula for that. Obviously, when you first become a physician, it changes over time. As you know, I've been doing this for so many years. Fortunately or unfortunately, I'm not sure. It doesn't become as bothersome to you because you've seen it so many times. But at the same time, if you want to flip the script there, we all acknowledge al-maut haq. We know death is happening no matter what. We know it happening. And we know it can affect a baby, la samahallah, all the way to the elderly. So, as long as you acknowledge that this is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this was their time. As an emergency medicine physician, you have to, kind of balance that. Okay, I can try my best to bring them back to life or prolong their life, but is it their time? So how long do I do CPR for? Or they're hooked up to a vent now. What's going to happen next? What is the next step? Those are sometimes some difficult questions to answer, and there's some controversy in that, and that's kind of difficult to get into sometimes. But those are difficult conversations. But again, if you're grounded in your faith, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has a plan for everything and everyone. You have those conversations with family, for example. If somebody, khalas, you did CPR for a period of time and you just could not get their heart started again, you have a conversation with the family. You let them know, hey, we tried everything we can. This was their time. Unfortunately, they passed away. Again, in the beginning, that it used to really get to you, but as time goes by, again, whether it's fortunately or unfortunately, it becomes less bothersome. But at the same time, knowing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has a plan for everything, and death is going to affect every single person that exists, it becomes acceptable.
And the greatest creation of all time, Prophet Muhammad, Muhammad, even he had to face that, and then and it serves also as a humbling aspect. And then I think maybe personally, when I've been in experiences of death, whether it be in the medical setting or the social family setting, you find that it really serves as an awakening call.
Yeah.
And it in itself is a sign for us to recognize and always remember God the Almighty.
Exactly.
Yeah. And now I recognize, when I was reading your biography, that you're also the medical director, if I'm not mistaken.
I am a medical director for urgent care. Also, currently, recently, president of my medical group our emergency medicine group.
MashaAllah, that's truly amazing. And then, when you're in this leadership role, what does that mean to you, and what are some challenges you face in this position? Obviously, because in the field of medicine, you have so many variables that could go wrong. So how are you able to, face these challenges? What keeps you composed? How are you able to tackle that?
So, again, this is something that also comes over time, growing up mentally, maturing that way. And again, becoming, more immersed in your faith and stuff like that. You're managing different kinds of people. You're, young people, older people, people with more experience, people with less experience. Not everybody is treated the same. My mom always used to tell us, even when it comes to your own brothers and sisters, your 5 fingers are part of one hand, but each finger is different. And you can't treat everybody exactly the same way. So you learn, I started to develop some of this, but I did go through a leadership course that kind of goes through some of the strategies on how to manage staff. But you have to again, be calm, be collected, not be emotional, because I've seen this in some leaders who become emotional, become demeaning. It accomplishes nothing. You don't gain the confidence of that person. They don't respect you. They will not do things for you. You want to be the person that when you walk through the door, people are like, oh, thankfully he's here, not, oh gosh, this guy just got here, and you never want to be that person. And I consciously, make it a point, knowing people know that I'm Muslim, right? You want, again, your identity of a Muslim should not be hidden. It should be very apparent. And we want people, that's da'wah by itself. You're like, okay, this guy's a Muslim, he's an Arab, he's Iraqi, but yet he's calm, collected. He, can be a good leader. He knows what he's doing. He has good command of the situation. The staff works well with him. That goes a long way in this world, in this day and age, knowing that, Muslims have that ability to immerse themselves in this corporate world, but yet still be successful and maintain their Islamic identity.
Yeah, and then if I wonder if you brought it up because there are traditions that say that um the religion is muamalat. The religion is trying to think of the English word for it. Its transactions is indulging with people because
Correct.
ultimately it's through your actions that you perform where people will be guided. Even looking back at our holy prophet, people even before he announced his prophethood publicly, they would refer to him as As-Sadiq al-Amin. I even read narrations that say that even non-believers would still trust him and put their money in his house. Like imagine like somebody they don't, I mean, they think he's an imposter, they don't want to follow him, but they still recognize his truth to the point where they were willing to put their most precious thing materialistically, which is money,
Yes.
in his presence
Mhm.
because he recognizes trustworthiness, his honesty. So it just shows that as Muslims we're going in these fields, whether it be medicine, law. Now we have many Muslim individuals in high government positions as well. And then some people want to conform, but ultimately it's when you're showing your true identity, that is when you'll serve as a positive message. And what is the true identity of a Muslim? I mean, what are you presenting? A Muslim, in linguistically, is the one who submits to God. And when you submit to God, God is the God is the most merciful. God is the most kind. And when you're able to reflect these traits in yourself, people will automatically be loved to this aroma that essentially stems from you.
Sure.
This
Sure.
aroma of kindness.
Yeah.
And it's funny you mentioned that you're dealing with individuals of all ages. Obviously, youth, older individuals, individuals with experience. And when I served as a medical assistant in urgent care, one thing that I realized that we had to combat was misinformation. That was something huge. And people will come in and we would have to have a joke that they would get their ChatGPT diagnosis and then they would want to try to disprove us. So, with the fast-paced world, and AI at its height, and every day there's always a new AI tool. How have you personally, tried to combine the positive use of AI, and how have you fought that misinformation that,
Sure.
or have you seen that in your field at all? Of course.
Yeah. We refer to it as Dr. Google. Everybody who looks anything up, that, I mean, it's death or cancer until proven otherwise. And most of the time it's not. If you look for anything, you can always find what you're looking for, and kind of guide AI or any kind of search engine towards the thing that you're concentrating on. But in reality, I find it's very important to, excel in your job, be confident, and know what you're talking about. And if you're able to exude that confidence, I'm the kind of person, it has not always gone well for me in that situation where, if I believe in something, I'm not going to do it. If I don't think somebody needs antibiotics, I'm not going to give the antibiotic. Some patients are like, I have to have that antibiotic. I always get the antibiotic. My doctor gives me this antibiotic every time. Or it's like when people go to Hajj or Ziyarah, they always take that Z-Pack with them. And to me, it's like, I want to shoot myself because it's like, what, what do you need this for? It's not something that's necessary. Or if a friend says, can you send me a prescription for a Z-Pack? It's like, you didn't come to me for the medical advice. You came to me for my prescribing ability. So I think it's important to hold fast in true science, true belief. You know, we are meant to do no harm from a medical perspective and from an Islamic perspective. I don't want to harm you. If I do this CT scan that's going to cause radiation to you, but I know it's going to come back negative, why am I going to do it? So it's sometimes it's a fine line because you don't want to upset people, but at the same time you want to practice correctly. And so I think if you can show the confidence that you know what you're talking about, you can prove to them that everything is normal, you know, spend a little bit of extra time. I kind of use this example sometimes with some patients where it's way easier if you're here asking me for a CT scan. It's way easier for me, way quicker for me to go and order the CT scan and be done with it. But I'm sitting here having this conversation with you, taking the time to explain to you why you shouldn't need the CT scan. That should tell you something. That should go a long way to prove to you that I'm confident that I know what I'm talking about, and I'm confident you don't need this test. And, you know, if anything changes, you're more than welcome to come back, or if anything changes, follow up with your primary care physician. But you know, um, AI has been a little bit tough, but you know, there's ways to navigate around that.
And then, because you mentioned many people come for prescription, this is on the script, but because you mentioned that, I think that should be tackled.
Sure.
Is that, you have in any field, you have some bad apples and some bad doctors that were, I like to call them the prescription doctors, like you mentioned. They just go just because they have that power,
Sure.
and and this kind of portrays a bad image on medicine.
100%.
How are you able to, combat that, or what are some things you kind of do to, or maybe even us as patients, what's something we can do to recognize that, okay, this doctor or this physician, no, he is presenting us with something false and we should not take it, and recognize basically a good physician from a bad physician.
That's tough sometimes, but again, I think a physician who takes the time to explain things to you doesn't just resort to prescription. I mean, for example, you go to the hospital, your blood pressure is really high. The first answer shouldn't be a prescription. There's other, avenues that need to be done before you get to medications. When it comes to a cough, for example, there's way more common things that cause a cough than a bacterial infection that requires antibiotics. Um, that it's to be honest, and we're just talking about antibiotics. There's other aspects that, for example, narcotics. For example, a lot of physicians in the community used to prescribe, narcotics and way overused. And to be honest with you, sometimes if it's done in the not so straightforward way, I'm okay with when they get in trouble. I'm okay with it because we don't need those people representing our community and being on the news, on the headlines as, Muslims or Arab. And these are the kinds of things they're doing. We don't want stuff like that. So I think it goes against medicine as the oath that you take in medicine, and it goes against our faith. We're causing harm to people. If you don't believe in that, I don't think you should be practicing medicine. And I think you can tell for the most part. Some doctors are really good at faking it, but for the most part, you can tell when somebody's genuine, takes the time, cares. If they're in your room for 1 minute and they write you the script again, I don't think they're trying to do what's best for you. That's kind of how you can recognize it, in my opinion.
And that's where we see the uh the combination of ethics and faith coming together,
Exactly.
and I want to tackle something that many, or cover something that many doctors or physicians may not speak about, which is burnout, because obviously it's something that is physically demanding and emotionally, and
Sure.
it takes a toll on you. And as emergency a physician, you know, I feel like this is one of, if not the most prominent
Sure.
specialty that faces this reality.
Sure.
So how do you avoid burnout, and how do you kind of uplift those around you to fall into burnout?
Right. So I think emergency medicine is a little bit unique. And yes, we are in the stressful situation, but also we're not a 9 to 5 kind of job. Our job is random shifts. We're working in, in our at least in our hospital, we're working in a pod to kind of together, and we try to enjoy ourselves during our shift, have communication with each other. We don't work necessarily every day. And an emergency medicine physician works probably on average 15 shifts a month. Now, it's not necessarily day shifts, some morning, some afternoons, some night. Some people do all nights. I think it's important to keep a balance at work and at home. You try to make a point. You want to spend time with family. You want to have time to go. I was able to take time off during the Layl al-Qadr in Shahr Ramadan because that was important to me. So I scheduled myself so that I'm working more before and after, but I had that time off. Take vacations with your family. All the personal aspects are important. And more importantly, I enjoy my job. I like being an emergency medicine physician. And if you're the type of personality who's going to be high strung and high stress while you're at work, then you're definitely going to speed yourself up through burnout. If you're the kind of person who is able to, rein yourself in, be a little bit more level-headed, calm, cool, collected, then it's not stressful. You can make a relaxed situation out of a stressful situation. And I also bring this up to the residents that I work with, residents who are under me, who are in their stages of training. You are a reflection goes on to the other staff. If the other staff are seeing you're calm, there's no reason for them to be excited. But if they see you're excited, they're definitely going to get excited, not in a good way, in a bad way.
Yeah.
In emergency medicine, you don't want to be in that, excited state, chaotic state. You want to be calm. So if you're calm, everybody else is calm, the situation is cool, there's no reason to be stressed out or be in a situation where you're going to be burnt out anytime soon. If you maintain that high-strung situation, maybe in the beginning when you're first training, you're scared. You're like, I don't want to make a mistake. I don't want to hurt anybody. It's going to start out up here. But as you go through your stages, you have to learn how to balance your demeanor while you're at work and balance your life at home, with family, friends, religion, mosque, brothers, sisters, maintaining your relationship with family, whether it's your blood relatives or your, brothers in faith.
And you mentioned balance. How important or critical was Islam in maintaining balance between work, faith, and family? Because that's something many people, even beyond the field of medicine, they're unable to strike balance in their work. I know personally there's a framework that I follow by, and maybe if we have time, I can share that at the end.
Sure.
But was there something you follow by, maybe a certain framework that guides you?
To me, it's about being intentional. If it's important to you, you want to make time to do it, but when you can't, it really bothers you. For example, Salat al-Jum'ah. I can't go to every Salat al-Jum'ah. I love going to Salat al-Jum'ah,
Friday prayer.
but Friday prayer. When I'm not able to make it, alhamdulillah, I was able to see you the other day at Friday prayer. But sometimes I can't make it. And when I'm looking at the calendar, like, man, I'm gonna miss Salat al-Jum'ah this Friday. Other times where like you said, during Shahr Ramadan, I was able to, strategize ahead of time and like, okay, look at the calendar a couple months ahead of time. Like, okay, Layl al-Qadr are gonna be around this time. So I kind of schedule myself. If you're intentional about it, you're able to accomplish that balanced lifestyle. If it's not important to you, you're not going to make the time to do it. So if it's, you want to make it part and parcel to your life, it's very important to me. I want that reflection to go on to my kids. I want them to see that I work hard, but I also keep a balance by wanting to go to the mosque on certain days, Fridays, or during Shahr Ramadan, Shahr Muharram, Friday night, lectures, if we're able to, Thursday night at Dua Kumain. So, it's important to intentionally do that, intentionally show your, kids that you're doing that so that when they grow up, that it's part of their lives as well.
And then remind me, even our holy prophet, one of the most busiest men in the world, dealing with economic stuff, the family stuff, the people were out to kill him every day essentially, and he still had that time to go to Salah, the congregational prayers. It just shows that, I mean, ultimately, if we put intention in our work, you're able to achieve so much, and with Allah's grace and will, that's why we say, "Inna al-amala bin-niyyat." Like the amal, your actions are with the intention. So if you have the intention, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to give you the tawfiq, the blessing to do that for sure. And as we continue, as we look to conclude the podcast, obviously what we look to leave, all of us, is a legacy. That's one of the hallmark of one's career. And then, coming, inshallah, we all can have long lives, but at some point, we're all gonna retire. And I want to see, what's kept you motivated all these years in medicine. And once that moment comes where you want to call it quits, like they say, what is kind of legacy you want to leave there?
You again, I kind of alluded to it previously. You want people to, when they see you, they think that he's a good physician. He treated people well. He was calm. He treated us with respect. He treated patients with respect. He practiced good medicine. He was straightforward and didn't, steer away from his principles. He was somebody who stood on his faith as well, had a Muslim identity that, he was not afraid to, reflect onto others. And somebody who, cared and, worked hard and wanted truly what's best for others.
And like they say, the best of you is the one who's most beneficial to others.
Exactly.
And then the final piece I like to ask our guests is if there's any advice you would leave for the next generation, especially those who want to grow up and become physicians, what would that be?
I would say, work very hard. Keep your Muslim identity. Do not hide that. Work hard. A lot of people kind of hesitate to go into fields like medicine. It's a long time. You're gonna, get loans. You want to be as beneficial as possible to yourself, your family, your community, your religion. Going into medicine is not going to make you rich, but it's going to give you a comfortable life. It's going to allow you to do certain things that you couldn't otherwise do. I don't want to make money so that I can buy a beautiful car. That's my personality. I want to make money so that I can pay my bills. I can help others. I can make donations comfortably. I can help with family overseas. If that is important to you, and if you make that important to you, you're going to strive to be the best. You want to move up the ladder. We need to be, in the corporate world at the top in every field, as much as possible, so that we can prove to the world that as Muslims, we have the right formula on how to be the best for ourselves and for others. And we work hard and we're the best at what we do. I think our faith allows us to get to that position, but unfortunately, I don't think we always take advantage of that because we're afraid of this and that. And we're just gonna, move straight forward, stand strong with your faith, and try to be the best, and then you'll get there. If you don't work for it, you're not gonna get it.
Alhamdulillah, those are, wonderful pieces, wonderful words. Inshallah, we're able to implement that into our lives, and I hope they serve as reflection for the viewers as well.
Child.
And thank you so much for coming tonight, and we're honored to have you.
It's been a pleasure.
وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Wa alaikum assalam.